Hello everybody, again, thanks very much for coming on Sunday, fantastic. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to represent a slightly different group of people interested in pre-primary or very young learners' language development, because I'm a teacher and not really an Anglo mama or a bilingual parent. So I'm going to talk about this situation and I'm going to talk about teaching very young learners from the teacher's perspective. Okay, let's see how it works. If it does, good, it works, perfect. So just to check, do we have any people here who are just teachers like me? Yes, good, teacher power, fantastic, okay. So, Lisa already mentioned all that. I'm just going to actually clarify once again that my background and my education are connected with language teaching. So I have Cambridge Delta thing, which is a course and diploma in teaching English to adults. So I'm trained and certified to teach all sorts of people English. There is also this International House certificate in teaching young learners, and again, that's a training exactly for teachers who work with small kids. I have about 10 or maybe a bit more years experience of teaching young learners, young and very young too. So my comments and my what I'm going to share is again from the teacher's perspective. A couple of words about the context. Okay. I think even maybe several years ago, maybe 4 or 5 or maybe a bit more years ago, when I first met parents of children who are sort of bilingual by the age of maybe 5 or 6, so can speak English quite fluently. I was very surprised, and I think even about 5 or 6 years ago that was quite rare, even in Moscow. And I think the situation was maybe still common in families where one parent is has another native language, maybe American English or British English, because they are from the States or from the UK. But now we are meeting more and more families where children are bilingual, not because one of parents is initially bilingual, but because one parent chooses to introduce another language and to promote it in the family, and so more and more children are becoming bilingual. I think what also is very common now is lots of Russian-speaking parents choose to send their children to an American kindergarten or certain play groups. There are international schools, and they have preschool play groups and everything. So we are now seeing more and more kids who are bilingual, and basically my impression is amazingly it works. However, I'm still in the sector that provides not actually kindergarten or playgroup sort of activities for young children, but we still do this very classical thing of having sort of lessons with small kids twice a week, 45 minutes or so. And I'm going to talk about some techniques, some very specific technique that we use and that I enjoy using, and maybe it can be practical for both teachers and parents too. So, because I teach only twice a week, and that's not really the 30% of waking time mentioned before, clearly the results I'm expecting are going to be very different. So what we, I think, can naturally expect to see by the end of this school year is actually children acquiring a number of single words and chunks, so phrases that they can exchange when they are in this English environment, and they actually can do quite well. They can ask for things, They can do some simple games that we play. They can take on different roles. And even by the end of this first year, spent in these short, like 30-minute lessons, children are able to say quite a lot of English things. So, because we are dealing with such little time bits, the materials that we use, that I use, of course, have to be like really well prepared, and they have to be like really designed for the purpose of working with small kids exactly in these 30-minute, like 45-minute chunks. So for me, it's really, really important that the materials we use are engaging, which means children generally want to do something with them. It's not like something lying like a book or an object that child has no interest in. So materials should be engaging and just by nature make children want to do something with them, to manipulate with them somehow. It's crucial that these materials are, or what we do is memorable. And by saying memorable, I think we all understand that memorable for young kids means involving movement and, of course, involving emotion. Clearly, when a parent talks to a child in their shared language, there is lots of emotional engagement from both of them, and that's one very big part that helps children to retain the language. Even in language classes, we try to recreate the situation and make the language we use emotional, and well, we try to add movement there. Because clearly certain gestures or certain movements help children recall things from their memory. Another thing that I focus on when choosing materials for very young learners is actually kind of an unexpected criteria, but it should be easy to use at home for parents who might not know English very well. So it means that for the materials that I use, I would like to have maybe an audio recording so that I can send it to parents, and parents would be able to just play it to their kids, and children would have something to touch or to play with while listening to this script. Okay? So one of my favorite pieces of material, which I think meets all these criteria, is storyboards. Maybe teachers who work with preschool kids and teachers who especially work with the course book called Playway to English can recognize this. Yes, very good. A couple of words about what storyboards are and why these particular ones. So basically, a storyboard is, as you can see, a story broken into maybe 4, 6, or even 8 pictures. And these two we are looking at are taken from Playway to English 1. But that's almost, as you can see, like page 21 and 35. It's not the beginning of the course. So here we can see 6 pictures. If you look at the beginning of the book, there are going to be just 4. So for maybe younger kids who will find it more difficult to follow a longer story. So storyboard is a story broken into 6 or 8 parts. And then the best thing about storyboard is that unlike maybe picture books that you would read with your child in English, the correlation between the text and the pictures is very straightforward. So just have one sentence, one picture. And the picture exactly shows what the text says. There is an audio track for each storyboard. And you can have, you can provide some listening, not only with your own voice. But again, one sentence, one picture with very, very clear correlation. A couple of maybe other comments about why I like these storyboards so much. Probably if you're a teacher, you have seen that that other course books use storyboards as well. And lots of books for small kids would have such stories and pictures. But check out what happens here. In Playway, there is this you, which you hear in every sentence. So what we would later on hear in this story is you are in a car. You step out of the car. So unlike introducing lots of characters that children might find difficult to recognize in pictures or basically make the story more complicated, here you are the main actor, you are the author of the story. And I actually think that this was sort of part of the plan. The authors of Playway, there's Herbert Buchter and Günter Gungros, have done a lot of research within the field of neurolinguistic programming, and they, I believe, looks like that, know quite a lot about language development. So children listening to these stories and then playing with them can actually themselves be the main actor in this story. So what do we do with these stories? Yeah, once again, the description of storyboards. This is going to be in the presentation. You can remember it later on. So what we do with the storyboard is the following. We would first of all just use the big flashcards. They're part of the course, but you can basically print out the same pictures just enlarged. So we would sit down in a circle with kids all on the floor, look at the pictures, and maybe just see what words they know from the pictures. Saying that, what's this? What's this? It's a car. Okay, you know your English, and this is a... Clearly. Okay, so kids would be just saying maybe single things at this stage. Maybe they was a girl or a tree. But again, they can recognize simple things that they maybe have studied. We would then listen to the whole story. I have this recording here. We'll use it in a second. So listen to the whole story, and then children will be relying on the voice, on the sound that they hear, to actually help them order the whole story. We're doing it together. So here is no strain on a particular student to get the right answer. We're doing it together, recognizing words, and just basically checking what they understand. What happens next? Okay. Right. So after we have put the cards in more or less correct order, and I can see that children can recognize the story, we then would move individually to our desks or just bring the books. And then there are these spaces, yeah, you can probably see that, where you can write the number. Sometimes children don't write numbers because they cannot write numbers, so they can either use dots, and I'm showing 1 dot or 2 dots, or we can use different symbols or just different colors to reconstruct the order. Again, with children who are younger or do not know so much English at this stage, we would use simpler storyboards with maybe just 4 pictures to avoid confusion. Anyway, potentially children of 6 can do some sort of numbering, and then it's time to check. And what I ask children to do is I take big flashcards, I say out loud the text, and have them tell me if it's number 1 or 2 or 3, and basically we just once again put it in the right order on the board. Okay, so here is the story. Just maybe for the sake of cutting down on time, this dramatic story is about you who is whatever driving the car, and then bam, you see the dog on the road, you get out of the car, dog jumps into the car and drives off, and you run after the car. Very dramatic and usually funny, so children enjoy it. What happens next is when we have ensured we all understand the story and have the right order, we go through the story sentence by sentence. I say the sentence, children repeat. So once again, we would do things like point, repeat, point, repeat, just the 8 sentences. Things like, you're in the car, and children's like, you're in the car. There is a dog, and children's like, there is a dog. So again, just go through the whole story orally. Fun part, we would then stand up and mime the story sentence by sentence. So we would typically, again, in the same order, with the teacher who supports all the story, repeat the gestures after me. So I would say like, you're in a car, and she'll say, you're in a car, and everybody mimes driving. There is a dog, there is a dog. So we would go through the story sentence by sentence. We would then work on learning the gestures, and we actually focus on repeating different gestures and drilling the pronunciation. Play around this, so we do gestures in the right order, in the jumbled order, and then maybe somebody else is a teacher and they give instructions to the class about what to do. And then gradually, through this series of activities, children get to really remember the story and to really learn it. And in the end of the same lesson, children would be telling me the story. So, what's the point? The benefit of storyboards, and storyboards from Playway, not from any course book, is that children learn not just single words or phrases, but actually whole sentences. And again, within this environment, this English environment they're in, they are able to later on use them in appropriate situations. And even without looking at grammar and teaching there is, there are, you have actually taught children, there's a dog, which I think is a really cool thing for children to acquire and then be able to use, like there is something. Also, because you involve gesture and there is a little bit of drama and there is so much emotion, clearly this language learning is very supported and more memorable, in fact. And one more thing that I personally find really, really beneficial in using storyboards is, it's the last thing here, it's developing narrative skills. And narrative skills is basically the ability to order things one after another. You have, like probably all mums have seen this in children's like copybooks or books and workbooks on a series of subjects where children need to order different things like duck, dog, duck, dog. Okay, so this is a bit of the same, but on a different level, right? And it's actually something that later on helps children with literacy. They can better make connections between sentences within a text. So ordering a story and then maintaining the order is really, really important. So try it. It works.
We've got questions. So some equipment dance. That's for you.
Okay.
It's okay if people you can, but people ask for the microphone.
Sorry. To be honest, I don't really believe too much in such stuff. That's why I want to ask you. Maybe you can reassure me.
Yeah, I don't believe in that other stuff either.
I mean, I most believe in patterns which are given to children, like when we start doing something like there is a doll, there is and something, and then they really understand that there is means that when you want to say something about something, yeah? But in this case, do they really understand that there is a dog means that when they want to say that there is something somewhere, they need to use there is? Or it is just memorizing and next class or 2 classes later, they will just forget it and that's it?
I think like with all language, they forget quite a lot. I'm not really sure what the question is.
No, I mean, does this means that you still give some patterns before you do this? Patterns like this is something, there is something, or...
Yeah, it's a part of learning the language. It's just one type of activity that we do in lessons. and it uses some words that children have studied before. So maybe we have studied a unit on toys, and there is the word car, and maybe before that they studied a topic about
Because
animals.
For me,
Yeah.
it seems like quite difficult
Yeah, it's-
structures and everything for people, for children
Sure.
who just started studying language. That's why I wonder how it works in reality. For me, it seems like they just learn it. At the end of their class, they can repeat it, they can tell the story, but 2 weeks later, they forget everything and they just don't understand what it is.
Yeah, so what I was saying before is this was not from the beginning of the book, and there was some learning before it. But the fact that children learn this story in one lesson actually means that they have really developed their skills of repeating things in English and actually saying whole sentences in English. And so by learning this story, they managed to acquire, to learn some phrases. And yes, if you don't use them, like with all other language, they're not going to use it themselves and they're not going to remember it forever just because you showed it once in a lesson. But when they have maybe a similar model or they hear something similar, that's when they will remember things.
No, I just want to add, I meet quite a lot of children who know a lot of poems or stories, but they don't really understand some words from the, for example, they say, there is a
okay. Sorry, yes, I got it. Sorry, yes. So the question is, when they learn the story and they can say things like, there is a dog, do they really know how to use the structure there is? Okay, no. No.
But then, why?
But that's not the point, because to learn a language, it's not like a linear thing. It's not like one day you learn it, next day you learn something new, and then you learn something else, and then you learn something else. Now it's like going in spirals, like you met it once here, and then maybe in a couple of weeks you meet something similar there, and then you meet something else again in a couple of weeks, and then by the end of the year you will be pointing at things like, oh, there is a dog, there is a monster. That's how it works. Okay.
Thanks a lot for clarification. Yeah, any more questions?
Masha, thank you for your talk.
Thank you.
I actually have 2 questions. Why do your lessons last 45 minutes, and who decided?
I do, and I think that that's the best chunk of time for 5-year-olds to spend in a group focused on doing things. It's not a play group. Like, I think we talked, like lots of people talked about different formats. This is like something that really resembles a lesson. I mean, we of course do like 1 million different things, but they're united by the same topic. We work with language, we focus on particular structures, and this actually allows us to have some like results by the end of the year. We don't just, like, I don't just speak English, I insist on like children repeating things, children saying things to each other, and to do this for like 2 hours is too much. Children like are not like that, I think.
Okay, and the second one, do you provide them with a kind of home listening?
Yeah, of course I do. I just sent an email to parents and it's like, this is audio for pictures your child has in the folder. So you turn on the audio and have your child point at the pictures and have them repeat if possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but like I think typically moms who take kids to these sort of lessons are usually quite interested in the results, so they would actually have children repeat every single thing. So that's also part of learning.
Okay.
I have a technical question about Playway, because I've done these kinds of classes a lot, but with other books. At which point does it switch from you to like a character in the story? The course, I mean.
There are different stories. Like these storyboards are made specifically for you. And then there are other stories in each unit. They have their own character. There is like Max and Benny or something.
I see. So it gives all
Both,
kinds.
yeah. But this one I think is made specifically for you to like drill certain chunks and have children like tell you the story in the end. Right. Okay, but I think it's actually, I'm sure it's like somewhere there, like have you ever, yes, exactly.
I have a question, two parts of the question. First of all, what's most important to make sure that it's just two times a week and 45 minutes? What do you do? Which components are needed to make sure it's you have great results? Because it's
I think we, judging by what you were saying later, I think we have different idea of great results. I don't expect children to be like bilingual or something. But I think like this early learning is about like creating the environment, a very positive environment where children would like what they're learning and would be interested and would form a positive attitude to English later on, so that when they get to the first class in their school and there is maybe not, like there is a different teacher, they would still find it easy to get into learning. And so also we learn like lots of phrases, so we are working not only with single words but with phrases, and it enables children to like say some little things when they travel with parents, like can I have? And of course, when children see they can do something in this strange language, which is just a crazy collection of other sounds for them, I think, they, I think, feel more motivated and like feel better about themselves. So working with chunks and including a lot of audio input and also having lots of varied activities, like engaging for children naturally, like working with nice books or like making some crafts is important.
Second part of my question. Okay. So we had a discussion. There is this idea that if you start at 5 and if you start at 7, at the end, by the age of 15, you may be having the same result.
You at the age of, if you start at 5, by the age of 15, you will probably take what? FC, right? Like that's my experience. I have this amazing experience of like starting at 5 or 6, and like this group is like about 14 or like 15 now, and like they did FC, and I think it's awesome. And like,
so like if they continue with you, if they don't just go to the ordinary
they
school,
can go anywhere. They have some
progress.
English already. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, we have one more question and then we will need to move on.
May I ask you about the lessons? What do you think? Is it the best way for learning for 5-year-old kids, individual or group lessons?
Oh, of course, group lessons, because children are social. And there is this amazing opportunity. Like, I mean, I'm doing drawing classes myself, and it's amazing. You see like 10 people do the same thing, and you actually start getting the idea of how to do it, even if you yourself is not really good at it. And that's what happens with children. Children are very different. And I think talking individually to kids, you would find that someone is really shy, or they just don't have this like their mouth or like vocal apparatus is not ready yet. So they will be hearing things said many times. They will be like miming what others do. And I think this group situation, the social situation, is really more beneficial for small kids.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.